Wow, I haven't felt this relaxed in weeks. So, who here is familiar with cozy games? Oh yeah, they're everywhere. I feel like Stardew really launched this idea, and I did love it, but I have not been able to get into another one since. The whole genre has pretty much been a wash for me, to the point where anytime I see the word, I abandon ship. Yeah, that's a lie. But it's no lie that A, I keep getting disappointed by cozy games, and B, I have begun looking at the whole genre with a skeptical eye. Also, I don't find them relaxing, whatsoever. Lately, life has been a bit more on edge. Work is exhausting, ski season is over way too early, I didn't like a game I was supposed to like, and YouTube and I are refusing to promote one another. It's mutual, don't get involved. Also, I'm just going to gesture at everything. You can't see it, but I'm sure you get the idea. Well, one night I got it into my head that I should find a game that lets me wind down at the end of the day. Something to settle my ever-racing mind. And what better way to do that than with a nice, peaceful, non-threatening in any way, cozy game. That was how I got Dorfromantik. The name appears, if Google has not led me astray, to mean nostalgic feeling for the countryside in German. It's a tile-based map-building game where you create a pastoral landscape by matching corresponding sides of hexagonal tiles. You get points for how well you match the tiles, or complete quests attached to the tiles. When you run out of tiles, the game is over. But no matter what, at the end of it all, you have a lovely little town to admire and appreciate. I assume. I didn't finish my first map. In fact, it only took about 15 minutes before "am I done yet?" floated into my mind. And that is not relaxing. Weird, right? The goal is to just chill. Dorfromantik and other games of the chill variety don't work for me, which is annoying because it's not as if my regular run of games are any better. I definitely have games that can help me out of a funk, but nothing that helps me just forget that the world is on fire and it's not fine. But to my surprise, I did find a game that seems to work, and after consideration, I'd like to explain why I think that is. That game, paradoxically, is Zombieville USA 3D. So before we dive into my alleged Zen experience, a brief history lesson. The 3D in the title refers to this being the third in the series, a series that apparently first launched on mobile over a decade ago. Funny how you miss things when you don't play mobile because it's a trash heap of asset flips, false advertising, and predatory microtransactions, huh? I feel very bad for this developer and others like them, who make genuine games for the platform and have to compete with all this slop. But I don't have time to wax poetic about the state of mobile gaming. Zombieville has been making a slow transition to 3D for a while now. The first game took place on a completely flat plane. The sequel introduced 2.5D arenas a la TMNT Shredder's Revenge. In today's entry, the camera has been wrenched from its side-on perspective into an isometric one. I think this was a good choice. No more questioning which plane you're on, more directions to shoot. Love it. I've never gotten into horde shooters before, not pure ones at least. Closest approximations would be Deep Rock Galactic and Left 4 Dead 2, which both have horde segments but whose gameplay is not strictly reliant on them. Actually, the genre I was most reminded of was Bullet Heavens, save for one core difference we'll talk about in a minute. So, how does this game go? You get dropped into the middle of town, and there are zombies. Lots of them. You have one goal: arm yourself. That is the only direction you have, not that you know which direction the crates will be in. I assumed at first that procedural generation was used in the map, but I reached out to the developer and they said it was handcrafted, which means that A, this is a much bigger map than first impressions suggest, and B, my absent sense of direction applies to digital towns as well. Anyhow, Zombieville is long since evacuated due to the living dead, but in their haste to abandon ship, the townsfolk left crates of weaponry littered everywhere. Parks, graveyards, playgrounds, all of them are home to multiple storage crates for high-powered weaponry. That's the USA in the title. At the start, the very start, you only get one weapon. Finding more is of the utmost importance as the new residents are keen to move in. Each weapon, aside from the melee ones, has a limited amount of ammo. There are no ammo pickups, so once the weapon runs dry, it's useless for zombie elimination purposes. Fortunately, you can hold up to 4 items at a time, and most of them will be guns. So that's the plan. Find gun, shoot zombies on way to next gun. It's simple, elegant, and easy to explain. And it really is that simple. Sure, there are quirks here and there, different types of zombies present different threats, different guns have different damage levels and ranges. Combat is simple, but never boring, and it gets harder the longer you survive. Zombies make your acquaintance through the floor, sometimes in small numbers, sometimes in a group. Most of the time you'll have to kill them to get past, but this is where that divergence from bullet heavens comes in. All zombies will orient on you, but you don't have to kill them all. You only have to kill enough to get away or buy yourself breathing room to examine a new weapon. Not every weapon is an upgrade, and personally I hate the throwables. You're actually faster on foot than all the zombies, even the runner is technically slower than you. They can also get caught on terrain because they're brainless idiots, so this really isn't a game about shooting zombies, it's a game about outlasting them. Sometimes that means discretion is the better part of valor. That said, we're not doing this for fun. This zombie hunt is all about the cold, hard cash. Back at the base, vendors will sell new starting weapons, upgrades to those weapons, and upgrades to you. They sell characters too, but that's more based on a collectible and it's really easy to get them all. So if you want to last to infection level 20, which I haven't at the time of writing this, you're going to need that scratch. This is where Zombieville leads you into making poor life choices. The easiest way to make money is to just sell the weapons you find. When you open a crate, you can take the proffered firearm or sell it. If you sell it, it's not coming back. This is your only chance, by the way. You cannot sell a weapon you've already used even if it still has ammo in it. No secondary markets in Zombieville. More commonly, you'll find money dropped by the recently deceased. As the carnage proceeds, more and more money litters the ground. At later infection levels, zombies are cropping up in high numbers with short cooldowns. Do you want to stay this fight and hope you can collect before the next crowd pops up, or should you abandon the money, take off, and wait for a better opportunity? I pretty much always risked my life, but you don't have to use me as a role model. Then there are the cursed zombies. These zombies glow with purple flame and are many times tougher than their fellows. Seriously, you can unload a full magazine into these guys and they don't always fall. But when they do, they always drop a high-level item, usually an awesome gun. They don't fight alone either. You can wipe out its support crowd, but if the fight takes too long, a new crop might grow before it falls. The fights are unfair, but that makes sense for the value of the drops. Each weapon has a basic level of 1 to 6. Once you wrap around to 7 though, things get interesting. Weapons start to come with special properties like Bottomless, whose ammo slowly replenishes, or Curse Breakers, who do triple damage to cursed enemies. Wanna know what Desperate looks like? It's me with empty ammo bags pouring my last bullets into a cursed zombie while his chums close in because whatever weapon he's carrying is my only chance to keep this run going. And then you die. Always. But that's okay. While I wouldn't call this a true roguelike, it's got that same death is part of the game. Yeah, but we'll talk about that a little more later on. For now, what exactly is the story here? What's happening? Well, it's not that interesting. In fact, I wouldn't even bother watching the next section. Better to just go here to this timestamp and see the rest of the main video. I'll see you there. Okay. If I have played my cards right, nobody should be seeing this part of the video. But it has to go somewhere. Play the sad music. This is not the story section for Zombieville USA 3D. How could it be? What kind of story did you think this had? Each character has funny little descriptions, but that's it. No. I have to do something here that I have dreaded doing. Welcome to the third leg of the Steam Quest, my journey through the entire SteamWorld franchise except the first one. This month was supposed to be SteamWorld Dig 2. Zombieville wasn't always the video for this month, it just happened to arrive right when I needed it. It gave me the serenity to accept what I could not change. And what I could not change was that I found Dig 2 disappointing. I must not go into too much detail, lest the viewers become suspicious about this section's timestamps, so brevity is necessary. But know that I gave this game every chance to impress me. And at the start, it absolutely did. For those who don't know, Dig 2 proceeds a few weeks to months after the first game. Rusty has not been seen since his battle with Vectron, and Dorothy, now that her father has passed, is on a journey to find her missing friend. Rest in peace, Cranky. The art style continues to improve. The Thunderful have always been strong here, and while I may prefer the character models from Heist, I would never say Dig 2's are lacking. The environments have also been stepped up with more detail in every parallax layer. This is not just a lava level, this is the lava level. Bowser would weep for a kingdom like this. Dig 2 also neatly solves a chronic problem for Metroidvanias, especially their sequels. How do you build new mechanics to solve old problems? Or in layman's terms, how many times can we use a double jump to get over a big rock? The answer is a set of multi-use tools, most of which are entirely different from what Rusty had available to him. Dorothy never gets a double jump, or a super jump, but she does get a grappling hook and a set of sticky bombs. In the dig focused world of Dig, these offer immense and wonderful mobility options for getting around the winding paths and caverns you leave in your wake. And they're multi-use. Bombs aren't just for clearing out rocks too far for the pickaxe to reach, they're valuable in combat with foes who are a lot more dangerous than Dorothy is. The grappling hook preserves momentum, so with the right timing you can use it to reach higher heights and even lower lows. That isn't even where it stops. Dig 2 introduces cogs. Cogs are a system for modifying your tools. Using them, you can better tailor Dorothy's build for whatever she's fighting, like a reflective pickaxe to bat enemy projectiles back at them, or lava-proof boots for when the floor is actually lava. That system encourages exploration, since cogs have to be found in the wild, or purchased, but we don't pay to win in this house, before they can be equipped. The higher your level, the more cog blueprints you unlock, and the tougher decisions you'll have to make about which abilities you want. It's ingenious, and I want to see more of that in future games. Unfortunately, there just isn't much game here. This is the bad part. SteamWorld Dig 1 took me between 4 and 5 hours to beat. Dig 2, 6 to 7. And frankly, for a sequel, that is unacceptable. Dig 1 was not what I would call a complete package, it was more a minimum viable product. It was good, but had all the hallmarks of, this is our first game, please be nice. And I was, especially since I knew they'd made better stuff down the line. Compare Portal 1 and Portal 2, or even Portal 1 and the fan-made sequels like Revolution. That's a massive increase in scope. Sure, Thunderful isn't Valve, but then Dig wasn't Portal. I was honestly stunned when I reached the end. How was that possible? I'd barely had any time to play with the best of the abilities and hadn't even unlocked all the basic blueprints, let alone the optional ones that make the game harder. What was I supposed to do? Grind XP and hunt for treasures that no longer had any purpose? Apparently so, since the only other challenge is a set of trials that unlock after you find all the artifacts. Those are collectibles, illustrating the SteamWorld's misunderstanding of humanity. Yes, that's something to do, but asking me to take on a challenge like that demands I be invested in the game to begin with. And I wasn't with Dig 2 long enough for that to happen. So my disappointment here is not with design. The design is excellent. It's with scale. This game came out within a year of greats like Stardew Valley, Cuphead, f***ing Hollow Knight. Even with its larger, handcrafted levels and integration of puzzle sections into the overworld, still not sure that was a good idea by the way, Dig 2 pales in comparison not just to present-day entries but to its own contemporaries. But enough of the gameplay, let's talk about the story.
Spoiler warning for Steam Dig 2. It's faster, it's deep.
We're not doing that. Credit where it's due, because I feel it's important. The characters and story of Dig 2 are a step up from Dig 1, but that was a low bar to clear. The citizens of Tumbleton were little more than a vendor menu with extra steps. Dig 2 presents you with a much wider array with diverse backgrounds, but not much story-wise. They will make comments when you complete story objectives, but these are not the insightful subplots of Hades' supporting cast. They're about as flat as they come. But the biggest failure for me was this person here. This is Rosie. She's a human, called Shiners by the Steambots, who through some trick of luck or intelligence never partook of the radioactive moon juice that most Shiners subsist on, leading her to grow stronger and more intelligent than her kin. Up until this point, humanity has been a running gag, and I've been fine with that. They're cartoonish, goofy, no one really takes them seriously, but somehow they always manage to survive, even with their homeworld utterly destroyed. But until now, the world has never been explored from their point of view. Not until Rosie. We see how the world looks to her, and it's basically the scenes from Terminator 2 where the future is dominated by Skynet. Steambots are everywhere, and they're violently dangerous to her and her family. Her existence shows that humankind is not beyond saving. The species can be redeemed, if only someone is willing to give them a hand and someone else is willing to take it. Rosie acts as a touchstone for Dorothy's quests, offering suggestions on where to go next in her search for Rusty. She can't go herself because if she does, her family will all wander off and get themselves killed, so it's up to Dorothy to complete a quest and save both their peoples. I'm going to skim over this quick. Turns out the town is being plagued by earthquakes, and as Dorothy soon discovers, this is because Rusty has turned Doomsday Prophet and built a machine meant to crack the fault lines of the world. Dorothy destroys the device, but why is Rusty doing this? There's only one place she can find an answer, and that's to go deep into the bowels of Vectron in a truly, I'm not even kidding, incredibly tense sequence that paints the Voltbots in a new and terrifying light. On returning, Fen, a little piece of Vectron who's been traveling with Dorothy, I don't have time to give you his story, reveals the existence of 3 more machines, necessitating a return to the 3 main areas of the game. Only when all 3 have been destroyed do we learn the truth. Why is Rusty trying to destroy the world? Well, let me tell you a story. Fen, the spiteful little ball of pixels, only has one fear: returning to Vectron. Because Vectron does one thing better than anything else. It changes you. At the end of Dig 1, when Rusty landed the final blow, Vectron was absorbed inside him, overriding his will and turning him into an instrument of destruction, bent on a plan that will annihilate all life, flesh or metal, leaving the planet for itself. In the final fight, Dorothy is too weak to damage the Vectron-powered Rusty until Rosie shows up and, using her brains, starts dousing Rusty with moon juice. Turns out the brain-addling properties work on machines too. Or maybe it's just a short circuit, temporarily disabling Vectron's control and giving Dorothy a chance to restore Rusty's programming. But it's too late. Even with Rusty saved, the core device is about to blow, and someone has to stay behind to teleport the others out. Unable to convince the other Shiners to leave, Rosie decides to remain with her family for the world's end. Humanity finally passes their legacy, willingly this time, to the Steambots. Neat, huh? Well, that was just a story. Wanna know what really happened? Rosie was trying to build a massive fusion-powered still to produce all the moon juice her kin could ever need and thus keep them in her oasis. She views Dorothy as nothing but a tool to be used, and she is the final boss. Oh, and she took Rusty prisoner the first time he went down to the mine, by the way. What about the giant statue of Rusty? What about the other Doomsday devices? What do you mean they were siphoning power away from the fusion distillery? What kind of nonsense is this? I genuinely do not get it. Sure, story has never been Thunderful's strong suit, but they really couldn't do better than this. Add that to the truncated game, and what actually happened here? This game came out 2 years after Heist. Why does it feel like a step backwards? Or to use its predecessor as a benchmark, why such a short step forwards? Is the dig mechanic just too complex to scale easily? Maybe they should have gone with a roguelike structure then, or something more like Dome Keeper. I don't know. I'm not them. I don't know why these decisions were made or what pressures the development team was under, but the end product is sorely, painfully lacking for a sequel. This just isn't enough. I do want to see a Dig 3, but sans almighty, they have to knock that one out of the park. If it happens at all, since apparently Thunderful might be in a bit of financial trouble and the industry is not in a healthy state. Well, that's me criticizing the most well-reviewed game in the entire series. Good thing no one will ever see this section. So yeah, turns out Zombieville is owned by the zombies and we're just this trigger-happy lunatic ruining everyone's day. Welcome back. So I guess I haven't addressed the principal topic of this video. How is this a relaxing game? Well, first of all, we're gonna need a change in music. Allegra, please play Lunar New Year by Alex Productions. Thank you, Alberta.
That's not my name, and you know it.
To address a problem, we must first understand that problem. As previously stated, the usual cozy games do not work for me. Stardew Valley is very enjoyable, probably the best farming life sim out there. Love it, but I don't find it a relaxing endeavor. This farm isn't just a creative outlet for me, it's a project. It is a never-ending to-do list. And what, pray tell, is the reward for work well done? Why, more work, of course. I don't play games like Stardew to relax. I play them because I want to see my aspiration come to fruition. I have no footage of it, but for me that was trying to turn my whole farm into a giant apiary/sap house. Which means every time a day ends, I want to begin the new day and check off another item on the list. And how about Dorfromantik? I mentioned it before, but why didn't it work? Well, simply put, there wasn't enough of a point. I felt no urge to be laying these tiles. There was no goal to reach, no challenge to overcome, and so my brain would not stop asking why I was subjecting it to this. Having nothing to do isn't calming for me, it leaves me thinking about what I should be doing. So I need a goal, but it can't be a long-term one. I need simplicity, but there needs to be some challenge. Well, my vacation in Zombieville provided exactly that. Let me try to explain. Each time you find a weapon crate, you have to start searching for the next crate. This will take you on a tour of Zombieville's surprisingly large map and probably get you completely lost. But being lost isn't really an issue because there's so much room to wander. Unless you're physically at the town's borders, there are always other directions to go in. Dead ends do exist where you can get cornered, but they often have a crate which helps you shoot your way out. The zombie attacks also start small. This is adjustable, but since I play this game as a sort of meditation, I always start at infection level 1. At this level, you might not even have to fight any zombies if you don't want to. They can all be safely navigated around, so starting off, the game is a literal walk in the park. By the way, I did want to mention that I really enjoy the art style. The neighborhood has a cozy vibe to it, probably the coziest thing about the game. There's an occasional car pileup and broken fence, but you wouldn't think zombie apocalypse from the visuals. Hell, for all I know, the residents are still in their homes watching whatever you're doing on the evening news. Those early moments are surprisingly chill. Of course, that changes as the level rises and new zombies start to show up. Tanks, for example, soak up more bullets before falling. Runners chase you down and have to be prioritized. Boomers explode when they die, spitters are self-explanatory. Cursed zombies tempt you into bad decisions. But understand that there's a power curve that works both ways. If you're doing your job, by which I mean opening crates, you will keep pace with the zombies in terms of power. The infection level doesn't just create stronger zombies, it puts stronger weapons at your disposal. While the tension does rise, so does the feeling of being an unstoppable death machine. So why, with a game that gets more violent and desperate with every passing hour, do I feel so relaxed while playing it? Well, how much do you know about flow states? I'm going to butcher the hell out of this concept, and way better YouTubers have done way better explanations, but the concept of flow is in a way the concept of fun. When a game is too easy, no matter what the context or rewards, players are liable to become bored. When a game is too difficult, players are liable to become frustrated. That middle zone, where challenge remains just barely above the player's skill, is the flow state. That is the state we gamers are chasing. Unless you're playing gacha games, in which case, don't worry, there's help. Of course, we're not always chasing that state. Our more casual games, even the really good ones, don't really have a challenge or base skill level and get their joy from other sources like creative expression or organizational satisfaction. On the other side, our Souls-likes and rage games toss the concept of flow somewhat out the door, appealing instead to challenge seekers who want the glory of doing the impossible. Zombieville 3D, though, really starts you in the flow state and does not let you out of it. The progression of weapon pickups continually makes you stronger, but the zombies likewise become more deadly. So even though power is creeping up on both sides, the fight remains in many ways a fair one, and so you never exit that flow state. Until you suddenly do. No one can hold out against the apocalypse forever, after all. Zombieville doesn't have a victory condition, so the time will come when you are finally overwhelmed, and it's usually a quick and surprising moment yanking you abruptly out of the state. It's weird to say, but that's kind of a good feeling. Maybe it's because you knew this was where it was going, so you're not losing anything by dying. The end of the road is not a build-up of frustration, but a release of tension. The crowd applauding you back home helps too. And unlike roguelike games where you're pushed to start the next run immediately, in this kind of game it feels okay to just let it rest. Go to bed. It's worth noting that this won't last forever. The money I earn is used to upgrade my weapons and characters. This is making the game easier. I can opt to start with just the pistol or just use a fresh save slot, but that's the short-term solution. As I get better at it, that flow state will slowly sink towards the boredom axis regardless of what I bring into the fight. No game is fun forever after all. But for now, this has become something of a nightly tradition. I am not someone who can just choose not to think. My brain goes constantly and it likes to fixate on whatever needs fixing, usually problems that are well outside my power to fix. So I make it focus on a simple task, well within my power, with no consequences for failure. And for around 20 minutes, I have peace. And that's Zombieville USA. 3D. and only that. Be good to each other, and thanks for playing, everyone.